Yeah, we really did it, Damu. We really did it, Damu. We really did it, Damu. Direct, baby, nigga.
Hey, you know what the fuck going on, bro? Yeah. Hold on, gang. I know what the fuck going on. I am the M.
So that's about it. He dead at 24 years old, trying to be a hero, and it cost him his life, trying to protect his cousin.
This is 24-year-old Savion Hopkins, known to many as Seven, a famous rapper and adult film star whose life was cut short by gunfire in Lincoln, Nebraska, for a reason that would leave his family shattered. In the early morning hours of September 8, 2024, just before 5:40 a.m., police were called to North 11th Street and P Street in downtown Lincoln after shots rang out in a crowded bar district. When officers arrived, Seven was found suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest. He was rushed to the hospital, but he did not survive. Just hours earlier, he had been with family, back in the city where he grew up, celebrating a loved one's birthday, unaware that the night would end in tragedy. What makes his death especially heartbreaking isn't just that a rapper and adult film star was shot dead in the street, it's why it happened. But before we get to that, we have to go back to who Savion Seven Hopkins really was and how loyalty became the very thing that took his life. This is the life and death of Savion Seven Hopkins. The 24-year-old Savion Hopkins was known by many names, but the one that followed him most closely was Seven. To some, he was Jay Hefner, a name attached to images, music videos, and social media clips. To the people who actually knew him, he was something quieter and more complicated, a young man shaped early by responsibility, loyalty, and the constant pressure to be useful to the people he loved. He grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, surrounded by family, long before attention or online visibility entered his life. Details about his exact birthday have never been publicly shared, but those closest to him describe a childhood rooted in connection rather than chaos. Family mattered to Seven early on, not in a sentimental way, but in a practical one. He understood roles, he understood obligations, and as he got older, he began stepping into them without hesitation. That instinct to step up, to fill gaps, to carry weight, would become a defining trait in his life, and it would quietly guide nearly every decision he made. From a young age, Seven understood that stability wasn't guaranteed. His mother, Jeannie Brown, struggled with serious health issues, and that reality sat at the center of his world long before adulthood fully arrived. Watching someone you love grow weaker does something to you. It accelerates maturity. It forces perspective. And for Seven, it meant learning early that love wasn't just something you said, it was something you proved. He didn't grow up dreaming of fame or notoriety. He grew up wanting to be dependable, and that desire would push him forward in ways both visible and misunderstood. As he moved into adulthood, Seven didn't drift. He worked, he planned, he searched for ways to turn effort into security. While much of his formal education remains undocumented publicly, what is clear is that he pursued practical skills alongside creative ones. He completed certification as a venipuncture technician, a path chosen not for glamour but for consistency. It was the kind of decision someone makes when they're thinking beyond themselves. He was building a foundation even as he explored other opportunities. But foundations take time, and time was a luxury Seven rarely felt he had. So he expanded outward. Seven began modeling, first casually, then professionally. His athletic build and confident presence made him a natural fit for fitness and fashion campaigns, eventually leading to work as an ambassador for Fashion Nova Men. Modeling opened doors, introduced him to new spaces, and slowly placed him in front of larger audiences. He learned how to present himself, how to control an image, how to turn attention into leverage. But attention alone doesn't pay hospital bills, and image doesn't carry a family. So Seven made another choice. He entered the adult entertainment industry, including content creation on an infamous platform for models to sell adult content. From the outside, this part of his life became the easiest to isolate, judge, and sensationalize. But within his own world, it was never framed as a lifestyle, it was framed as a solution. According to those closest to him, the decision was driven by necessity, not impulse. It was work that paid quickly, work that could support medical costs, work that allowed him to shoulder responsibilities without asking others to pick up the slack. He approached it professionally, deliberately, and without illusion.
Have you ever slept with someone in this house?
Yes.
Who was it?
I out Gorilla.
That is diabolical.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I hit that to bring it around town. You know what I'm saying? So, type you feel me?
Take my daughter on a date. You pull up. How you coming to the door?
Yeah. So I'm gonna jump out the Lambo. You feel me?
Lambo, huh?
I'm gonna introduce you. How you doing, sir?
I'm all right.
Yeah.
Is it rented or?
It's rented. Yeah.
Well, first, sir, respectfully, I'd like to say that my contestant here, he's a star. He's had sex with thousands of women.
I'm a veneer tech.
He's going to be cheating
I
professionally.
do veneers. Real now, like, you are no threat. Who you thought was gonna be in the final with you?
I thought it was gonna be us too.
Oh, so you knew I was your threat.
You were just eye candy. That's really all you are.
What are you?
I'm more than that. I got more to offer than that.
I don't know. You ain't got no kids.
No, I don't got no kids.
So are you ready to even be like a parent for her?
Yes, I take care of kids.
He's so confident that he's about to get chosen. You know I'm gonna fucking win.
Now, I don't know about you, but I got some real fly shit to put on.
Me too. I'm about to fucking shit on your fit.
You better lay your edges a little better than that.
Talk about my edges. Let me see your haircut.
Well,
Let me see.
don't worry about
You got it
what my
spray
line
painted
is.
or something?
I wish I did. I might feel a little better.
He's just mad because my edges was laid and his shit look crazy.
Y'all got the same race and shit. Ooh. Go get dressed. You need some time to lay them motherfuckers.
Shut the fuck up. Go
shit's
fix your
coming up,
fucking
too.
bum-ass hairline.
You need some more hairspray. Of course, my longest relationship 4 months, you feel me? But that shit don't even matter for real. Like, we came here to, you feel me? We came here to lay pipe and say goodnight. You know what I'm saying? All that relationship, you and your husband.
Still, this wasn't the part of his life that defined him. That part came from somewhere else entirely. Music had always been there, lingering in the background before it ever became visible. Seven didn't stumble into rap, he gravitated toward it. Writing and recording became a way to process pressure, ambition, and identity. Under the name Seven, he released music that reflected hunger and confidence, but also control. His lyrics weren't chaotic, they were measured, intentional. They spoke to someone who understood both struggle and discipline. As his presence grew online, music and modeling began to intersect. Music videos, collaborations, social media promotion, all of it fed into a larger identity he was carefully shaping. To outsiders, it might have looked like hustle culture. To Seven, it was alignment. Every lane he moved through served a purpose, whether it paid immediately or planted seeds for later.
Double O.
Where did wool come from?
Yeah, Whoop really came from Whoop, originated by the Whoop.
Whoop, there it is.
Yeah, Whoop, but something similar though.
So you just switched it up.
But like,
Oh, I'm on the phone.
you feel me? But I'm the original Whoop.
Carrie got the first recording ever.
No doubt.
Okay.
But even as his visibility increased, his priorities stayed remarkably grounded. He never stopped being a son. He never stopped being a brother. And the way he loved reflected that. His relationship with Malene Murchison revealed that side of him clearly. She described him as her safe place, a man who expressed love openly, consistently, and without games. Seven wasn't emotionally distant or guarded. He said what he felt. He showed up when it mattered. He understood presence wasn't passive, it was protective. That instinct to protect wasn't something he learned late. It deepened when he became a father. When his daughter was born, something settled in him. At the time, she was just 10 months old, and she had already become his anchor, his reason, his constant point of reference. He spoke about her with pride, not performatively, but earnestly. Everything he did after that moment carried her presence quietly attached to it.
I'm hungry. He not feeding me.
Oh my fucking God. She's ate 3 meals a day.
You have to. For real. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We only
Some
eat
people only eat
twice.
once.
Who? That's not me. That's not me. You do his hair, he start acting different. Let me see. Look down.
I do lashes as well, so tap in.
After spending his young adulthood building his career, Seven eventually made his home in Ontario, Canada, where he pursued work in music, modeling, and content creation. But family remained central to him, and he traveled often to Lincoln, Nebraska, the town where he grew up, to visit his loved ones. By early September, Seven returned to Lincoln, Nebraska, a place that held both familiarity and history for him. The visit wasn't dramatic, it wasn't charged, it was centered around family, celebrating a loved one's birthday, reconnecting, spending time in places that felt normal. At the time, it was just another weekend. But something in that trip would change everything. On the early hours of September 8, 2024, Seven was in the area of North 11th Street and P Street in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska. He had returned to the city to spend time with family, a visit centered around a loved one's birthday, nothing more than a weekend meant for connection, familiarity, and celebration. The night hadn't begun with tension. It unfolded the way many family weekends do, moving from a private gathering into shared time downtown, surrounded by people he knew, in a city that still felt like home. There was no sense of danger, no warning that the night would end any differently than it began. At some point, nearby, an argument broke out. At first, it didn't stand out. Raised voices in a downtown bar district after midnight weren't unusual, especially near closing time. But the exchange didn't die down. Instead, it pulled more people in, tightening the space on the sidewalk. Seven noticed the shift when he saw his cousin involved. He stepped closer, not to confront anyone, but to intervene. He moved between his cousin and the center of the argument, trying to pull him away as the situation grew more physical. What had started as words turned into pushing, bodies colliding as the crowd pressed closer instead of backing off. The area became unstable quickly. Multiple people were involved, movement overlapped, voices competed, and in that confusion, control slipped away. Then, gunfire erupted. The sound cut through the crowd and panic followed immediately. People scattered in different directions as the sidewalk cleared in seconds. Amid the chaos, 2 men were hit. Seven was one of them. Emergency calls came in almost instantly. When officers arrived at the place, they found 2 men suffering from gunshot wounds. Seven had been struck in the chest. Another man was injured nearby. But the people responsible for the shooting were nowhere to be found, and so the people who responded could only do the most important thing at the moment: save the victims of the shooting. Paramedics rushed Seven to the hospital, where doctors worked to stabilize him through the early morning hours. Despite medical intervention, his injuries were severe. And at approximately 5:37 a.m. on September 8, 2024, Seven was pronounced dead. Meanwhile, the second victim fortunately survived. Investigators later confirmed that police had been responding to multiple disturbances in the downtown area that night, with several fights breaking out near the same cluster of bars. The environment had already been tense before the shooting occurred. What investigators did not find was any indication that Seven had gone downtown intending to confront anyone. There was no evidence of a prior dispute involving him, no known connection between Seven and the shooter, and no suggestion that he was the intended target. His involvement came from proximity, from stepping in, from being close when everything escalated. By morning, downtown Lincoln returned to routine. Streets reopened, businesses resumed operations, but for Seven's family, the night ended with unanswered questions and a reality that settled in quickly. Now, the hunt for the people behind it. In the hours that followed, the Lincoln Police Department began piecing together what little the scene had left behind. Officers canvassed the area, closing off sections of North 11th Street and P Street, while detectives documented shell casings, tracked blood trails, and marked points of movement where the crowd had scattered. But almost immediately, investigators ran into the same obstacle again. By the time officers secured the area, much of what could have offered clarity had already dissolved into the night. Witnesses were difficult to locate. Many people who had been present had fled when shots were fired. Others were intoxicated, shaken, or unwilling to stay. Statements conflicted, timelines blurred, descriptions varied widely, from clothing to physical features to the direction the shooter fled. And without a consistent narrative, the case began to fracture. Detectives collected shell casings from the scene and submitted them for ballistic analysis, checking whether the firearm used had been connected to any previous shootings in the area. They also worked to trace the second gunshot victim, hoping that person's account might clarify what had happened in the chaos. But that lead stalled as well. The second victim survived, but was unable to provide identifying information that could point investigators toward a suspect. No weapon was recovered, no suspect was detained at the scene, and no immediate arrests were made in the days that followed, which raised a troubling reality. Despite the violence of the incident, the shooting appeared to be spontaneous. Investigators found no evidence of premeditation, no online threats, no prior disputes tied to Seven, and no known relationship between him and the person who pulled the trigger. The investigation came to a halt. Days turned into weeks as the investigation continued. For Seven's family, that waiting period was agonizing. Answers felt slow, updates were limited, and grief was compounded by uncertainty. They knew who Seven was, they knew why he stepped in, but they didn't yet know who would be held responsible. Then, in October 2024, investigators announced a breakthrough. After weeks of reviewing surveillance footage, witness statements, and digital evidence collected from the scene near North 11th Street and P Street, Lincoln police identified two men they believed were responsible for the gunfire that ended Seven's life. The arrests confirmed what Seven's family had feared but long suspected, that his death was not random and that decisions made in seconds had lasting consequences. The first man arrested was Kavion Wright, a 23-year-old from Omaha, Nebraska. Prosecutors identified Wright as the shooter. According to court documents, Wright was armed during the altercation and allegedly fired multiple shots into the crowded area as the fight escalated. One of those bullets struck Seven in the chest. Wright was charged with first-degree murder, use of a firearm to commit a felony, and multiple counts of second-degree assault, reflecting not only Seven's death, but the danger posed to everyone else nearby. Prosecutors argued that firing a gun in such a crowded downtown setting showed an extreme disregard for human life. The second man arrested was Gregory Bahati, a 30-year-old from Omaha, Nebraska. Bahati was not accused of pulling the trigger, but investigators allege that his role was just as critical. According to police, Bahati encouraged Wright during the confrontation and was present when the situation escalated. Prosecutors allege that his actions helped push the conflict toward violence rather than away from it. Bahati was initially charged with aiding and abetting first-degree murder, along with related firearm charges. As the investigation progressed, prosecutors strengthened their case, later upgrading his charges to include first-degree murder, citing his alleged involvement and encouragement during the moments leading up to the shooting.
We're here today to provide an update and answer some questions related to the murder of Savion Hopkins that occurred on September 8th near 11th and O Streets. On Wednesday, October 16th, 23-year-old Kavion Wright of Omaha, Nebraska, was arrested for first-degree murder, use of a firearm to commit a felony, and 2 counts of second-degree assault. Investigators also arrested 30-year-old Gregory Bahati of Omaha, Nebraska, for aid and abet first-degree murder, aid and abet use of a firearm to commit a felony, and aid and abet 2 counts of second-degree assault. After reviewing video and other digital evidence and interviewing dozens of witnesses, our investigators have made the following determinations. On September 8th, shortly after 1 a.m., a series of disturbances and fights took place near 11th and O Streets. While those incidents unfolded, Wright, Bahati, and Hopkins were in the area. However, they were not actively involved in those fights. Just prior to the shooting taking place, Bahati had a minor involvement in one of the fights. Bahati disengaged from the fight, turned and looked towards the area where Hopkins and Wright were standing, and said, "Shoot him," while pointing in the direction of Hopkins. Wright, who was standing behind Hopkins, produced a firearm and fired at least 2 rounds before fleeing the scene. Those rounds ultimately struck Hopkins and led to his death. Video evidence showed Wright flee to a vehicle a few blocks away. That vehicle, a 2021 black Honda Pilot, was owned by a family member of Bahati. While working in conjunction with the Omaha Police Department, investigators were able to determine, based on video surveillance, that Wright had left his residence in Omaha around 11 p.m., just before, a couple hours before the shooting, wearing the same clothing that the person responsible for the shooting was wearing. They also determined that the black Honda Pilot was the vehicle that drove Wright from his residence in Omaha to Lincoln. That same vehicle then returned Wright to his residence after the shooting took place in Lincoln. On October 15th, arrest warrants were issued for Wright and Bahati. In addition, search warrants were issued for the residence of Wright and Bahati up in Omaha, Nebraska. The Lincoln Police Department, in coordination with the Omaha Police Department SWAT team, gang unit, and homicide units, along with the United States Marshals Fugitive Task Force, served those search warrants in Omaha, where Bahati was taken into custody just after 6 o'clock in the morning yesterday at his residence, and Wright was arrested shortly after around noon in Douglas County. Both Wright and Bahati were then lodged at the Lancaster County Jail.
For Seven's loved ones, the arrests brought a complicated mix of relief and devastation. There was relief that the case had not stalled, relief that investigators continued working even after the headlines faded. But there was also the reality that no arrest could undo what had already happened. Accountability could move forward, but Seven would not be coming back. While the legal case unfolded, the public response continued to grow. News of Seven's death spread well beyond Lincoln. Fans from his music career, followers from his modeling and content creation work, and people who had never met him but recognized the injustice of the situation shared his story.
Rest in peace to Seven. Someone that passed on our show.
What? Like during the filming?
After. I think that was the hardest part of this whole experience, is like falling in love with these people for different reasons, and that particular person, I really, oh my God.
Yeah, Did you cry when you found out?
She was bawling.
I was for like weeks. I still think about him and cry.
Wow.
Because he's such a great man. Like, you guys will get to know him, you know, as the show airs, but he's not only a beautiful man outside, but like inside too. Like, such a big, like, he did not miss his parenting time with his daughter. Like, his daughter would come on set.
I was around him 48 hours, 56 hours. And the 56 hours I was around him, I was like, wow, this is a man. This is like, this is like,
right, yeah.
That's crazy.
Stand up.
So that's about it. He dead at 24 years old, trying to be a hero, and it cost him his life, you know, trying to protect his cousin. So now,
just last night we told you that investigators had arrested 2 people they say are connected to that shooting in downtown Lincoln last month that left a 24-year-old man dead. This afternoon, both were in court and formally charged.
And both men, now behind bars, were picked up in Omaha. Right now, it appears as though they will stay locked up for the foreseeable future. 1011's John Grinvald was in that courtroom. He joins us live this evening in the newsroom with the latest on all of this. John?
Cole Madison, the judge presiding over this case, determined back to back that both of those men will be held in jail without bond. And if found guilty, both could end up spending the rest of their lives in prison. As we tend to see with these arraignments, they don't last long. 23-year-old Kavian Wright is accused of pulling the trigger that night, and he's been charged with first-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree assault, and use of a weapon to commit a felony. 30-year-old Gregory Bahati is charged with aiding and abetting in those alleged crimes. That shooting took place in the early morning hours of September 8th outside of a bar near 11th and O, with Savion Hopkins dying at the hospital. LPD outlining what sparked the violence earlier today.
Just prior to the shooting taking place, Bahati had a minor involvement in one of the fights. Bahati disengaged from the fight, turned and looked towards the area where Hopkins and Wright were standing, and said, "Shoot him," while pointing in the direction of Hopkins.
Police say that's when Wright pulled out a gun and fired at least twice before running away. Investigators say surveillance video then caught Wright jumping into an SUV nearby that is believed to belong to a family member of Bahati's. Wright and Bahati will both be back in court on different dates next month.
Tributes flooded social media, remembering him not for the moment he was lost, but for the way he lived. A GoFundMe campaign was organized to support Seven's family with the goal of covering funeral expenses and helping them adjust to life without him. The fundraiser quickly surpassed its original goal, drawing donations from friends, strangers, and supporters moved by his story. In total, it raised $29,123. But still, no amount of money could replace what was taken. Seven left behind his mother, Jeannie Brown, who relied on him not only financially, but emotionally. He left behind siblings who leaned on his steady presence, and most painfully, he left behind his 10-month-old daughter. His baby was too young to understand why his father was suddenly gone. She would grow up learning who he was through stories, photos, and memories shared by others, through the way people described his work ethic, his loyalty, and his instinct to protect. The future Seven had been building for her would now be carried forward by those who loved her just as fiercely. Within the Lincoln community, Seven's death reignited conversations about gun violence, nightlife safety, and how quickly situations can spiral when weapons are introduced into crowded spaces. Many questioned how multiple disturbances could erupt in the same area in a single night. Others focused on the broader reality, how often lives are lost simply because someone was close enough when conflict turned deadly. Seven's story resonated because it felt painfully familiar. As the case against Kavion Wright and Gregory Bahati continues through the courts, Seven's name remains at the center of the conversation, not as a symbol of violence, but as a reminder of what was taken. And for his baby, for his mother, and for everyone who loved him, that loss is permanent. If there is one thing this story asks, it is this: pay attention to how quickly moments can turn, to how easily violence can escalate, and to how many families are left carrying grief that did not have to exist. Seven Hopkins' life mattered, and remembering him is one way to make sure that fact is never forgotten. What do you think about it? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.